Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, folks. We're here. We're live. And I have to say, I have a very special coffee mug this morning. This is my mug celebrating the work and contributions of Vlad the Impaler. Um, Impale the
Mine.
day, right? What does that say?
Hold
Something
on.
she,
I can't do it. I have no
nevertheless,
mental
she
space.
persisted.
Yes.
Okay, see the dichotomy here. Vlad the Impaler was a special guy.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Special
good,
talents.
good morning.
Good morning.
So we're just gonna like chew the fat this morning. We're just gonna talk. Nothing
Yeah.
big, nothing heavy.
Yeah. Super
Just
casual.
talk about sports. The sports ball season is here. I definitely
I
need more
don't even
coffee.
know how to reply to that.
I, I'm sure it is. I'm sure sports ball season is
I'm
upon
sure
us in
there's
some
some
way.
kind of sports ball going on right now.
There always is. I think there's probably two or three sports balls going on simultaneously, juggling all the sports balls. Good morning, folks. How are you today? We are just getting started. Today's going to be an interesting day. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Sundays with Shae and Crystal. We should put that in parentheses. And Crystal. Um, yeah, So it's been we finally got some rain down here, so that's good.
Yeah.
We needed that. Oh my god, I think we'd been through just about 60 days without rain, and the last 3 or 4 days we've had just incredible downpours for good long periods of time. So it's nice. We're getting that good soaking rain that we desperately need.
I followed
Hey
my
Deborah.
trend of Deborah of always getting caught in the downpour yesterday.
Mm. You know how I didn't get caught in the downpour?
You stayed inside.
I stayed inside. Hey, Amelia, how are you doing? Yeah, I stayed inside. It was great. Well, I did go to the grocery store once, but just once. COVID has been kind of circling our house, and so far, I'm clean. I even tested negative this morning. I just might be invincible.
Superhuman.
It's the power of Vlad.
It's the power of
The
Vlad.
power of Vlad. I drink from my coffee that is the coffee of my enemies. No, my enemies probably drink terrible coffee. I don't want to drink the coffee of my enemies.
No. Your enemies aren't coffee drinkers, Shae.
They're really not. They're really not. Um, I don't know what they drink. I don't know. I don't know. Do I have enemies? I'm sure I do. I think everybody does. Probably. I don't know. I do know, and that's what we're talking about this morning. Yeah.
Hmm.
So there we go. What a segue to our topic.
Hold
That's
on.
right. Yes.
I have to kick Echo out of my office. He's making noise.
For those who don't know, Echo is an animal. It's a dog. It's not that she's trying to kick reverberating noises out of her office, although that would be a feat. Um,
One of my monsters.
yes, I have an incredible amount of energy this morning. I think it's probably because this is my second batch of coffee. I woke up at 5. I was very excited about this broadcast this morning. Um, excited, meaning nervous, but had lots of coffee and decided I needed more. So we're just going to lean into it. And I've got other things here with me should I decide caffeine is no longer appropriate. Um, Other things being water
Uh huh.
and water.
Uh huh.
Um, so yeah, and this is water. It's like bean water. It's just bean water.
Yeah, totally.
My wife has these athletic greens that she drinks every day, and so she's constantly like, hey, have my greens come in yet? Have my greens come in yet? And so she's talking about her greens. These are my browns.
That doesn't sound nearly as good.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, burping. That sounds like ass water. I don't know. I'm just not really happy. But coffee is awesome.
Yes.
Water's not, but coffee is. All right. So, how do we segue into this? I don't know. It was the best.
Well,
times, it was the
obviously,
worst
your
times.
obsession with coffee, or our obsession, I can't pin it all on you, but I was thinking about this last night. How I don't know what. I guess maybe close to two years ago now. I don't know, year and a half ago. You had decided that you were going to get healthier and happier and start on this journey, and you quit everything all at once.
Oh,
Coffee,
yeah. That was a terrible
alcohol,
time.
sugar.
Yeah, all
At
the
the same
things.
time, Shae caught her.
It was a terrible idea.
That was
The
such a bad
alcohol was
idea.
a great idea. Quitting the
Yes,
alcohol was an incredible idea. But
yes.
quitting all the things all at once made me want to like pull my eyelids out as far as I could and then pop them over the top of my head. And then stick toothpicks in my eyes because
Yeah.
that's what it felt like.
I remember having a talk with you, and I was like, please don't do this to me. You can't abandon coffee and all of this and have me like shoulder this on my own.
Yeah, and we'll get into this, but I had a conversation with my psychiatrist lately, foreshadowing. And he was talking about different medications, and he was like, now this one medication, it's kind of a stimulant. So if you get onto this medication, I would really suggest you back down from the coffee. And I said, okay, then forget that medication because it's just not happening.
Mm-mm.
And I said, besides my wife, coffee is the love of my life. And I'm just not going to get rid of my coffee.
Right.
And he said, okay, well, then we'll put you on a non-stimulant and see how that goes.
Right. Yes.
So, yes, this is me on a non-stimulant. Put on lots of coffee. Yeah, let's get into it then. I decided to do that. And why did I decide to do that? And that was almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years ago in January.
Okay.
So 2 years ago in January would have been 22. So then let's back up, say 3 years from that.
Yeah.
2019 was a weird year for me. My mom had passed away about 2 years before. I was in the middle of winding down my participation in a business that I'd started. I was in a lot of transitions at the time. And I'd gone through some stuff in our family where, our local community was in a crisis. I think we'd just gotten a year before or so, just gotten rid of a superintendent. It was a contentious time. We had a deputy superintendent that we had hired as our superintendent. There was a lot of community skepticism as far as the school board went. I had been involved in school stuff since my kids were very little. I was always involved when, my oldest, who's now almost 24, since, when he was in kindergarten, just from then on, I was just always super involved. I was always volunteering in the classrooms, part of the PTO, all those kinds of things. And had a really good relationship with teachers, with faculty, with administration. And in 2019, I decided I would run for the school board. Great idea, right? Seemed innocuous. Seemed like it was, serving the public.
Right.
And it was, the process was pretty interesting. I come from a very politically involved family. Although my politics has always been a little bit different than the bulk of my family's. We've always been politically involved in one way or another. At the time, I was a TREPAC trustee for the Texas Real Estate Political Action Committee. So I was even working in politics within the real estate world. And the school board was an interesting situation because in it, you've got people who are elected by the general public. They are trustees. And there's a difference. There's an actual legal implication of trustee. And the idea is that we are elected as trustees to make decisions that are, in our minds, best for the community. The legal implication there, and I don't want to divide on this too much. This isn't something worth splitting hairs over, but there is a legal difference between simply an elected official and a trustee. And so I took that very strongly. That was a really important role for me. I served with some fantastic people. I didn't know any of them before I got on the board. I really didn't. I didn't have much of a relationship with any of them at all. The people that I did know were cycling off the board. Had some experiences with them. I didn't know who to trust, didn't know what to think. I think that's kind of how the community in general felt, at least the ones that I spoke to frequently. Of course, 2020 comes, and with it, the pandemic, all of that fun stuff. Pandemic comes, we go on spring break, and we never go back. I will say that one thing that will always be impressive to me about our school district is that if you would have told our technology and our teachers, our technology department and our teachers and our faculty, okay, in 1 year, we are going to flip the switch and do school completely virtual. Start planning now, because in 1 year it's going to happen. People would have freaked out, and there would have never been the kind of streamlined success that I think we saw. But in 1 week, not even 6 months, in 1 week, our entire district flipped a switch and were able to deliver educational coursework to kids electronically for the whole district in 1 week. And that was such an impressive thing to me. That showed the power of community when everybody came together, when everybody's, bought in and really leaned into it and said, hey, this is great. We're on board. And so it was an incredible thing to me. So in 2020, when all of this was happening, this was the mindset. This was the context that we were in. And I get a call one day from a childhood friend of mine that I hadn't spoken to in, 30 years probably, since we'd graduated from high school. 5 years. Just kidding. It was 30. And Shane had been, he was a retired federal prosecutor. He was currently, at the time, maybe still is, teaching at, I believe, Duke University in their law department, teaching on social justice issues and ethics. And it was just a really great guy. And he calls me up and he says, hey, I've written an op-ed for the Houston Chronicle. And when it gets published, if it gets published, I would love for you to help it get some traction. Now, keep in mind, this is the summer of 2020.
Right.
George Floyd, all of that happened in May of 2020, his unfortunate murder. And then demonstration started. People started looking at our national conversation. People were trying to understand the context of what was going on. People were trying to understand why we had systemic issues that had gone unchecked and unlooked at. What were all of the influences? What were the things that we could divest ourselves of, that we're putting hindrances in the way for people? What are the things that, you know, were low bars that we could remove of entry? Ways that we could give equal access, not just equal access, but equal opportunity. I remember that summer learning such a distinct difference between equality and equity, and learning that equality is saying, well, hey, there's a staircase, anybody can get to the second floor. But equity is seeing that person in a wheelchair and saying that doesn't give them the same opportunity for access. It might give the same access, but it doesn't give the same opportunity for access. And so we have an elevator to give the same opportunity for access. That's the difference between equity and equality. And so looking at everything that disenfranchises people, looking at everything, and as long as there is one student that's disenfranchised, that's one too many. And so Shane and I are having this conversation, and I said, okay, well, what's the name of this op-ed? And he said, now, or the time is now to change the name of Robert E. Lee High School. I said, okay, I'm in. I can get behind this. Absolutely.
Seems simple.
It seems simple, right?
Right.
You know, in my mind, I think, when have we ever created monuments to traitors? And that's the way my mind thinks. You know, these are people that launched a war against the US of A. We don't have monuments to Osama bin Laden. We don't have monuments to people who have attacked us before. This is an easy answer. Let's just do this. I know it's history. We'll still remember the history. We got lots of books. We got lots of pictures. We got lots of flags. We got lots of people who want to remember that history. We're going to remember it. That's not an issue. But how do we move forward in a way that creates equity, that removes things that disenfranchise people?
Yeah.
And so I thought, sure, let's do this. And within 1 week, I had received an anonymous death threat. There were people threatening to burn down my house. Over the course of several weeks, I noticed as my listings stopped being shown, I had clients that were showing me screenshots of conversations on social media where realtors were saying, don't show his houses, don't show his listings. He's the guy trying to change the name of Robert E. Lee High School.
Right.
And folks, this is not about me. I mean, I want to tell my story, but I want to tell my story because of what it elucidates, because I think these are important points that need to have light on them, not because of me, but because of where we are and how we need to be there for each other. Right. And I want to use this story as an eye-opening experience. So I'm not looking for, oh my gosh, poor Shae. This is a story and it's important. I've waited a really long time to talk about this because I didn't want it to get misinterpreted as a poor Shae.
Right.
So just follow me along.
Time has passed.
Time has passed.
Right.
A lot of time.
Right.
And so I start, I get this anonymous death threat. I get these people that are threatening to burn down my house. I get people that are blackballing my business, which is illegal. All death threats are illegal too. I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
You point out the things that don't make sense. For whatever reason, death threats made sense to me. I don't know. And Christina, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes.
And so all of this stuff is happening, right? And I've never had this kind of stuff happen to me. I don't know how to react. I don't know how to respond. And even now, when I think about those early days and weeks, we were in the middle of a pandemic. And so we were already isolated. Mm-hmm. I already felt removed from the people that I felt were my community,
Right.
my safety net. I'm an extrovert, right?
What?
Obviously, I
Huh?
am on video on a Sunday morning on a continuous basis. Um, but going back through and thinking through that time, my kids were terrified. I mean, my kids at the time were in high school and in junior high.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and sometimes it's hard for me to think back and realize how wrapped up I was in my own trauma and my own stuff that I was going through, and I have to stop and think that I wasn't the only one in my household going through it, that my
Mhm.
wife was going through it, that my kids were going through it, and they didn't ask for it. I
Mhm.
signed up for it. They didn't sign up for it. They were kind of thrown into it.
Well, you didn't ask for it either.
Well, no, but I did sign up for it. I
You signed up to help.
volunteered to help.
To
And
help.
yes. Um, and I'll never forget, after I got the death threat, um, I brought the whole family together in the living room, and it was a really surreal moment. I borrowed a shotgun from a friend of mine and showed the kids how to use it, showed them where it was going to be hidden. We had a long talk, and I asked my kids and my wife, I said, okay, guys, do you want me to back down? I,
Mhm.
I will gladly back down if you guys want me to, if you feel like I should, if you feel like this is too much. um let's talk about this as a family. um and every single person in my family looked at me and said, do not back down, please
Right.
don't back down. Let's do this, and let's do this as a family.
Right.
There's no way I could have done that without them. And so to fast forward, um, there was a group in the community that was obviously against changing the name. I will say that anytime you see the words heritage or preservation, you gotta wonder and start thinking, what are they trying to preserve? Um, what's the heritage that they're really
Mhm.
trying to preserve here? There were people that tried to file a lawsuit against me with the attorney general. Attorney general said, nope, you got to go through the school board. You got to go through the school district's procedures, go through the grievance process. 5 people in the community tried to get me kicked off the school board, me and another one of the trustees. It was a 6-hour trial, 3 hours for each of us. Oh my God, it was intense. And then after that, the school board meeting continued. That school board meeting went to like 2 in the morning. Oh my gosh. Of course, we won. Mike, thank you, sir. Thank you. Um, I didn't get kicked off. We won the grievance or whatever. Obviously, we were doing nothing wrong.
Right.
We were following the Texas Association of School Boards guidelines. We
Right.
have First Amendment right to have an opinion, and we were just sharing that opinion. And when you're caught up in those moments, at least for me, I didn't stop to think, what's the impact on my mental health? What's this doing to me?
You're
Um,
powering through.
just powering through. You kind of have your
Right.
blinders on, and you just think, okay, what's the next step in front of me? And I will say this, because as much as it sounds like I'm kind of speaking bad about my community, I don't mean that at all.
Mhm.
Because I'll say this, and this goes back to some of the stuff that I talk about when I talk about transparency and branding and being your authentic self and stepping out and being unashamed about who you are and your values. And I can get on a soapbox about all of the marketing revolution that's going on right now with authenticity. But I'll say this: we live in a world where we're told not to believe, not to stand up for our beliefs, not to talk about religion or politics in good company or in public or whatever. And it's true. It can take a hit. And my business absolutely took a hit. But it bounced back in that time frame where I was being blacklisted by the realtors in my area because of my service on the school board. I watched my business dry up, and just to try to take care of my family, to make ends meet, I actually took a job. And a lot of people don't know this. Most of you don't. I took a job for about 4 months in the middle of 2020 with Harris County Public Health as a contact tracer for COVID patients, and eventually became a team lead for a group of epidemiologists doing research. I did that for about 4 months until I was able to kind of scale my real estate business back up and get back to it full time. But I'll say this, when my business dried up and I thought my community had turned its back on me, I had the most amazing group of people that came around me and said, "We've got you." And my community, oh my God, I grew a new community. I didn't grow a new community. That's a stupid way to say it. I found a new community. They found me.
Right.
And oh my gosh, it was the most liberating thing to have so many beautiful people come and say, "We've got your back. We see what you're doing. We're with you 100%. We believe in you. We thank you for your service. And we're standing with you." And my business bounced back. I had the best year I've ever had transaction-wise that following year.
Right.
But then the business didn't fix it.
Right. Yes.
The wounds were there. The skepticism, the paranoia, the sweeping emotions that I just couldn't control. There were times where, in one day, I would go from feeling like I'm on top of the world to feeling terrified.
Right.
There's a certain helplessness that comes when you really just can't control your emotions. We all like to think, oh, let's, just control it. Oh, just be happier. Oh, just snap out of it. And you can't. You literally can't. And this is going to be a really hysterical analogy, but I love this analogy so much. It's like erectile dysfunction. If you've got erectile dysfunction and I tell you, just get it up, just make it happen, it's not going to work.
No.
Because it's dysfunction.
Right.
It's erectile dysfunction. Executive dysfunction is the same way.
Right.
You can't just will it to be better. You can't just say, okay, today I'm going to be in a great mood.
I'm going to be over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be terrified when I walk into that school board meeting. There were times when I would drive up to the administration building and I would just sit in my car and I would think, I can't do it tonight.
Yeah.
I just can't. And I would turn around and I would go back home.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing it bleed over into other areas that don't make sense, where you don't stop and realize, this fear that I have, this anxiety or this paranoia that I have it doesn't make sense in this situation because these are all friendly people. This is not the same situation. There's nobody giving me death threats. There's nobody doing, thinking all these terrible things about me. There's nobody trying to kill my business in this situation. But you bring that baggage into you because you never put that baggage down and you never dealt with it.
Right. The trauma is still following you around.
And I didn't even know to associate that word trauma at that point.
Right.
I just knew I couldn't handle my emotions anymore. I knew that there was something, and for years, I mean, right now we're in the middle of 2023, and I'm talking about 2020, and for 3 years I've been saying, I just feel like something broke in me in 2020, and I can't put it back together.
Mm-hmm.
So then started all of the attempts to try to put it together myself, like the Humpty Dumpty syndrome. I started trying to remove all the obstacles out of my way, tried to do everything I could to feel better. That's when I started really leaning in. This is years after I had all the drastic weight loss. I thought, okay, well, I've always had those extra 20 pounds I wanted to lose. Let me try to really focus in and lose those 20 pounds.
Right.
Started running all the time. I started working out. I started trying to figure out everything I could do to be fully me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started looking for things that I could remove out of my life and things that I could also then infuse back into my life, taking the power back, ways that I could find, reconnect with who I am. Surround myself with the music that I love, surround myself with books that I love. And I tried to really look into the things that I can put in my life that connect me with the beautiful things that I enjoy. And those are really great coping mechanisms. They can go a long way if you don't have access to therapy, if you don't have access to medication. These can go a long way, and for some people, this is sometimes all they need. Hey, Carla, good morning. Shauna, I appreciate you so much. Shauna Prentice, you know this. I appreciate you so much. Shauna was one of those people in my community that just had my back and just, yeah. Shauna, I care about you so much. Thank you. So I started trying to infuse my life with all these things, right? Mm-hmm. And I started trying to think through what I can remove out of my life that's not putting me in the healthiest place possible.
Right.
And this is around the time I think, Dane Saunier is another one I just love. Dane has always been a real inspiration in my life. Musician, incredible guitar player, incredible band. Galactic Cowboys has always been one of my favorites since the early 90s. Dane was talking about his sobriety struggle. Mm-hmm. And he'd been sober at that point for, I think, 5 or 6 years. And I reached out to him. And he and I met for coffee like the next day. And we had a long talk. And I realized right then and there that alcohol was something I needed to remove from my life because I was using it so much as a crutch.
Right.
I was using it to disconnect. I was using it to numb what I was going through instead of processing what I was going through. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying when I first stopped drinking, I remember saying that I just wanted to be present. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be present in whatever I was going through at the time. And feel everything I needed to feel because I'd been tired of not feeling it. I'd been tired of numbing my way through it. Right. And so on January the 25th of 2022, 22, I took my last drink. I have not had a drink since. It's not like I was a raging, violent alcoholic. I just didn't like what it did to me. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like how I felt. I didn't like the disconnect. And I just felt like life was better without it. And I made stupid decisions on it. Just constantly. It cracks me up now when all well-meaning, right? But there have been some non-alcoholic beers that I really love. I love a good craft beer flavor. And that's one of the things I really miss about not drinking. So I've kind of been finding all these wonderful non-alcoholic beers. Athletic Brewery makes some, Carbach makes some, St. Arnold's makes one now. They got some great stuff. And I remember when I first started talking about drinking non-alcoholic beers, people were like, "Oh, be careful. It's a slippery slope." No, because I don't want to do stupid things when I'm drinking a non-alcoholic beer. It's not a slippery for me, maybe for other people. And that's one thing that I noticed. You never want to assume anything about somebody else's journey.
Right. Everyone is so different.
Everybody's so different. So all of this is going on. And for a long time, I scared myself so much because of the drastic mood shifts, because of the paranoia and the anxiety. I would go into situations that had nothing to do with the school board, had nothing to do with the school district, where I just felt like I had eyes on me and everybody was out to get me. It kept me out of some important conversations and some important meetings.
Right.
There were events, work events, Texas Realtor events, that I really struggled with the paranoia and the anxiety, and it kept me from having the kind of conversations I should have been having all along. Now, I will say one thing that is incredible in all this is support structure. Support structure is so important.
Yes.
And Crystal, I mean, you've kind of walked with me through almost every bit of this.
Right.
You've seen me go through all of this, and to have the support of the people around me makes a huge difference. I had an incredible series of conversations with Texas Realtors leadership this last week. Mike Barnett, Travis Kessler, Marcus Phipps, those guys, they heard me.
Yeah. And I'm sure they also kind of had an aha moment in talking to you when they're like, "Oh, that's what's going on with you, dude."
Yeah. And similar conversations with HAR leadership through the years in different capacities. But, so here's where I'm going with all this. And I really, this is the thing. This is kind of where I want to bring this, because this is where it's about more than just my story. Because this isn't about the school board. This isn't about what I went through. This is about trauma. This is about the fact that every single one of us have things in our lives that weigh on us. That event that I went through in 2020 was the event I went through in 2020. There were other traumatic events before that. I mean, I've had traumatic events happen my entire life. And the thing is, we've all had traumatic events happen to us in our entire life. This is a really traumatized world. And it is a traumatizing world. And the things that we go through leave marks in us, deep marks. And I don't know that I don't think any of us get by without those marks.
No.
We just don't.
No.
and putting all those structures around me, the support structure with the people, the health structures of trying to get healthier, make sure that I'm reading good material. I remember there was a time when I thought, okay, I'm going to do these 3 things every single day. I'm going to make sure I put good food in my system. I'm going to make sure I put good information in my system. And I'm going to make sure that I put good exercise in my system. I want to work my body and get my adrenaline going. I want to put good music and good information, good books, and feel myself, feel those endorphins and new information and healthy information and things that can help change me and fix me and do those things. But all that wasn't enough, because it really was something that had been left in me. And I love one of the things that I've read over the last 2 years or 3 years, because I've been reading voraciously over the last 3 years, everything I can find about health, about healing, about fitness, about mental health, about everything like that. And Dr. Gabor Mate is somebody that I've just found so incredible in his research and in his articulation and in the way that he explains things. And he has this conversation about a car crash. He uses the phrase that trauma isn't what happened to you. Trauma is what happens in you. Think about a car crash. The car crash is what happened to you, but the internal damage that it leaves, that's the trauma.
Right.
And the event can happen and move on, but the damage within us lasts.
Right.
And some of us have had traumatizing childhoods. Some of us have had traumatizing events that have happened so far back in our lives. It actually predates our verbal capacity. It influences our pre-verbal brains. So we can't even articulate it because it happened before we had language. We just have the feelings and we just have the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, having people around you that are incredible. I went to my boss at work a couple of months ago, and I was terrified, you guys. I wasn't terrified of what my boss would say. I know I got a great boss, but I was terrified of what was going on in me. I was having such drastic mood swings that were completely out of my control that I remember just telling my wife through tears, I'm so tired of living like this.
Right.
If it takes me being drugged to where I'm just a zombie, I'd rather be a zombie than be out of control like this and just not know what every day is going to feel like. And I was really terrified of what was going to happen because I really didn't know what they were going to tell me. Were they going to tell me that I was losing my mind? Were they going to tell me that I was bipolar? Were they going to tell me that I had some deep issue that wasn't fixable or that was always going to be like this? And they could try things was I going to go through all of these different medications and be miserable for years? But I talked to my boss, and my boss said, first of all, take care of yourself. It's that oxygen mask. And he used this analogy that I loved. Robbie, thank you. You have no idea how much your friendship sustained me over the years, Robbie. Thank you. And so many people in my community. But he uses this analogy of rubber and glass balls. If you drop a rubber ball, it'll bounce back. If you drop a glass ball, guess what? It's not going to bounce back. It's going to break.
Yeah.
And work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it'll bounce back. But your health, your family, all those things, those are glass balls. And if you drop those, you don't get another shot. And he said, go, take whatever time you need. Just get yourself healthy. Melissa, hey, my friend. Melissa went through that with me. She remembers. And so I made an appointment with a psychiatrist, and I made an appointment with a therapist. And the psychiatrist asked me all these questions, and I kind of went in there. I'm so terrible at this, you guys. I could tell you so many stories about the ways I have WebMD'd myself and my kids and come up with all of these crazy things that we all have. Hey, Courtney, come up with all these crazy things that I have or they have. Or, gosh, it's embarrassing.
Dr. Google.
Dr. Google, or what's even worse now, Chat GPT.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's my favorite. My Chat GPT doctor, he's under my insurance. Anyway, my doctor asked me all these questions, and he just kept getting more and more like wide-eyed and more wide-eyed, and he said, well, my gosh, you've been traumatized. And I kind of chuckle. I'm like, you think? He's like, this is PTSD.
Right.
And I just lost it. And my wife was in there, and I'm crying, and he starts talking to her. He's like, does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? And of course she's nodding. She's like, yeah, that's happening. And he said, you've been dealing with PTSD for a long time. And we just need to get you some help.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, sometimes we can work our way out of it on our own, but sometimes we need a little extra help from medication. And he said, I have no doubt that we can put you on this medication and probably get you off of it by the end of the year. You dig in with a good therapist, do the work through this stuff, and through the work together, we can fix this.
Right.
And then I heard the magic words, because one thing I've learned about trauma actually restructures the physiological nature of your brain. Mm-hmm. Trauma actually reforms your neural pathways. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, this medication actually course corrects some of that restructuring. It's actually fixing some of those neural pathways. Mm-hmm. So he put me on this one medication, and then he tested me for ADHD. Surprise! I have ADHD. 50 years old. So that's another thing. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that forever, because that's a crazy one. But so I'm on a couple of different medications right now, one for ADHD and one for the PTSD. And folks, I have to tell you, it's incredible.
It's life-changing.
It is life-changing. Mm-hmm. I've been on vilazodone now for almost 2 months. Mm-hmm. And I will say, I don't feel drugged. I don't feel like a zombie. I don't feel disconnected from myself. I don't feel muted in any way.
Yeah.
I just finally feel like myself again.
Right.
That's it.
The weight is off your shoulders.
I feel like myself.
Yeah.
The weight is completely off my shoulders. I can process things clearly. I can focus. I can process things clearly. I don't feel the heaviness. Mm. And most importantly, I got my fight back.
Yes.
I don't feel wounded.
Mm-hmm.
I feel strong again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still processing everything. Mm-hmm. That's probably stuff I'm going to process for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. Because I want to get it right. Mm-hmm. I don't want to waste this opportunity. But I feel like myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like myself for the first time probably since pre-2010.
That's a long time.
Probably since before my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Right. It's been a long journey.
I forgot who I was.
Yeah.
Don't forget who you are, folks.
Yeah.
Who you are is worth rediscovering. Who you are is worth finding again. Now, I'm not going to tell you it wasn't hard. The medication's been difficult. The struggle to get here has been difficult. In that time before the medication, I was trying everything I could to feel better. I was trying everything I could to get back to feeling the way I used to feel, or feeling the way I wanted to feel. You know, I wanted to lose those extra 20 pounds, and I did. And then I went way too far.
Way too far.
Way too far.
You overcommitted.
I did overcommit, because here was how it worked for me. It's like all these other things are out of control in my life, and this is the one thing that I can control. I had gone through that weight loss, and I felt great about myself, and so that was something that made me feel good about myself, and I wanted to commit to it. And I was finding dysfunctional ways of feeling good about myself by doing it, because I was committing way too far. I lost way too much weight. And then when I started getting on the medication to try to fix this stuff and help me get to a better place, it jacked up my metabolism, and I'm where I can't hardly gain weight now. I am eating everything. Oh my gosh, best thing in the world. I'm having Pop-Tarts every morning. Holy cow. I'm having Pop-Tarts in the morning, crumble cookie at night. And I'm just not gaining weight, but I'm trying. Yeah. I'm recognizing I went too far, and I'm trying. The medication I'm on for my ADHD is a non-stimulant. But what I find is, again, rediscovering myself. My whole life, I've been a happy kid with incredible amounts of energy. And people that didn't know me before 2010 never really knew me. And now they look at me and they think, holy crap, is he on like meth or something? No, this is just me. This is me on pure air. And yeah, my crumble addiction is real, Jenna. That is true.
It is. It doesn't help that he has his source in his house.
I have a 17-year-old plug who lives in my house. He keeps me connected. But it's been a hard journey, folks. But it's been a worthwhile journey. I am in the best shape of my life. I'm in the best place in my life. And there's hope. There really is hope.
Yeah.
This is not a unique story, folks. You may not have served on the school board, but every single one of us has been through some shit in one way or another. And if you're not feeling like yourself, if you find that you're just too tired, if you find that you are feeling like nothing you do is working, like everything you're trying is unsuccessful, if you're feeling like you've lost yourself, we live in a world that unfortunately strangles us out of ourselves through trauma. And we work, many of us, in an industry that rewards avoidance of time with ourselves.
Yes.
That encourages a hustle culture that gives no time for self-reflection, that encourages sleep deprivation, that encourages overconsumption of alcohol, that encourages living out of our cars in unhealthy lifestyles. And every single one of these contributes to us losing ourselves. Every single one of these things contribute to our struggle to maintain some sense of balance about who we are and how we show up in the world. It's a hard thing to figure out because nobody taught us.
Right.
Nobody taught us how to take care of ourselves. A lot of times we had to figure it out. But it's important. It's the most important thing you can ever do.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of the people around you.
And I think that's a really hard thing for everyone to keep in mind too. And we think, well, I'll do this for myself once X, Y, and Z are okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a struggle to put yourself first.
Mm-hmm. It is, because we live in a world, in a culture. I love talk about addictions. I am so in love with these things right here. St. Arnold's.
You are. That's another addiction.
Yes. It's a hop infused spring water.
So gross.
And for the haters,
so gross.
This is alcohol free. Trust me, I don't like that. This is amazing. But no, I think, what was I saying?
Putting yourself first.
Putting yourself first. Thank you.
Yeah.
We live in a culture that assumes those things are admirable. Mm-hmm. Before I wrap up, I want to read a passage of something. And it comes from Dr. Gabor Mate's book, The Myth of Healing. The Myth of Normal. Oh my God, I've been talking way too long. So in The Myth of Normal, Dr. Mate publishes a list of qualities that he found not just common, but prominent among patients that he worked with who dealt with everything from cancer to autoimmune disease, persistent skin conditions, fibromyalgia, endometriosis, chronic fatigue syndrome, and all these other things. And when he started looking at this, he realized that, there were some commonalities, and these are the commonalities: an automatic and compulsive concern for the emotional needs of others while ignoring one's own, rigid identification with social role, duty, and responsibility, which is closely related to the next point, overdriven, externally focused, multitasking, hyper responsibility based on the conviction that one must justify one's existence by doing and giving. 4, repression of healthy self-protective aggression and anger. And 5, harboring and compulsively acting out 2 beliefs. Number 1, I am responsible for how other people feel. And number 2, I must never disappoint anyone.
Yeah.
How much do we all feel like that?
Yeah.
And furthermore, how much do we assume those are all great qualities to have?
Right.
That's the difficulty here.
Right.
And the real thing is these fly under the radar because they're so normalized in our culture. They're normalized ways of being admired in our culture, and they're looked at as strengths instead of dysfunctional liabilities and coping mechanisms. And they're really easily confused with things like compassion and honor and diligence and loving kindness and patience and generosity. But here's the thing. None of those things necessitate you give up who you are.
Right.
None of those things mean you have to take care of others instead of yourself. None of those things mean you ignore your boundaries. Every single one of those mean you extend that kindness to yourself first, that patience to yourself first, that generosity to yourself first. and then you can extend it to other people. If you're not extending it to yourself first, you can't take care of others.
Yeah.
And so we've normalized such dysfunctional ways of being that we've got to remember that taking care of ourselves is not at all selfish. It's the most fundamental principle of how we can show up for others.
Mm-hmm.
So, cheers.
Amen.
Well, I had no idea this was going to happen in an hour. I was kind of prepared for this to like be some sort of marathon. But that's my story, folks. That's kind of that's where I am and why and who and
how.
But this is far too important. I'm sharing my story because I want you to know that there is hope. I'm sharing my story. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so important that you're sharing it because it helps everyone out here and everyone who loves you also know that what they're feeling is not abnormal. Right? Yeah. We are all going through this. And even someone as magnetic and charismatic as you are, you go through this too. And I think that a lot of people think, oh, well, like, Shae's just got it handled. And I have comments made to me like that sometimes. We're like, well, you've got this, like, you can power through. And I'm like, oh my God, meltdown first, and then I'll power through. Right. So I think it's so important that everyone becomes more transparent about this. Yeah. Because we all go through this, and it's at different levels at different times about different things, but it's a commonality that we really do all share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want you guys to know, I'm here. If you've got questions, if you want to know more, if you want to know how I did it, mm-hmm. or where I went, who I talked to, the mm-hmm. kinds of things I read. Let me be a resource.
Yeah.
Let me be a help. You don't have to go through this alone. There's an incredible community, and I assure you, you've got people around you who love you and who care about you and who want you to be you and who want you to find yourself again. You are an incredible person.
You're worth fighting for.
You've got a perspective and a voice that is so badly needed. Mm-hmm. If you're struggling to find that again, let me know. Mm-hmm. Let somebody know. Mm-hmm. I tell you what I'm going to do. I think we're going to do this on a regular basis with this little Sundays with Shae thing that we're doing. I'm going to put a link in the chat, and this link is going to be for a Discord server. This is the official Renew Discord server, and pop in right after this is over. If you've got questions, you want to chat some more, I'm going to do like a Q&A over there. It's just going to be on the voice server. So we're just going to have a conversation. Don't worry about the text. Just pop in over there on the voice server. If you know anything about Discord. If you don't know anything about Discord, you're with me. I just did this last night.
It's super simple. It's fine.
So join us over there on Discord for a conversation if you'd like. But yeah, welcome to season 2 of Sundays with Shae. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And Crystal.
Sundays with Shae and Crystal. We'll say it a little louder next time. Thank you, folks. Thank you, really.
Yes.
Love you guys. We'll talk soon.